thank you, Ömer Taşpınar, for joining us on Objections.
My pleasure.
You wrote an essay about your journey, how you essentially were going to pursue a life in the diplomatic service until you shared your views about the Armenian Genocide and acknowledging the Armenian Genocide. Can you tell us that story?
Sure, happy to, Adam. Thanks for having me on the show. My father is in the Turkish Foreign Service, so I come from a diplomatic family, and they always wanted me to at least try the Foreign Service exam and be a Turkish diplomat. And I kind of warmed up to the idea when I was in college. Until that day when I started to work as a tour guide in Turkey when I was in my 20s, and shortly after getting my master's degree in first Italy and then in Washington D.C., I came back to Turkey, and I was supposed to take the Foreign Service exam at the age of 25 with a master's degree from Johns Hopkins SAIS, which was a good graduate school. So I was determined to actually give it a try to this diplomacy life. And shortly before taking the exam, about a week ago, I was called by the travel agency that I used to work for when I was in college. And they asked me to basically take a tour to work as a guide for a group of American journalists who were visiting from New York, and they wanted someone who speaks good English, who has a good understanding of the country. And I said, sure, I'll do it. It will be my last tour before I take the Foreign Service exam. And sure enough, this group of journalists who were friends of the ambassador, I think back then it was Mark Grossman, who was the ambassador of the United States in Ankara. They asked me a question about freedom of speech in Turkey. They were very political. I mean, they were interested in political stuff, and I was very willing to talk about this. And I made a kind of half joking remark saying, well, there is freedom of speech in Turkey, but freedom after speech can be problematic depending on what you say. And about a couple hours later, when we were in Ankara at the Museum of Anatolian Civilizations Museum, I was showing them the archaeological sites of Turkey on a map. And one of the archaeological sites was near Armenia. And they saw Armenia and they said, we're Jewish and we know about the Armenian genocide. We have Armenian friends who keep comparing the genocide to the Holocaust. And what do you think about this issue? Like, what do you think it was a genocide? Do you think it's comparable to the Holocaust? So I gave them a kind of 5-minute middle of the road answer, conscious of the fact that we are in Ankara. This is 1996. There are other tour guides listening. It's a crowded museum. And I tried to explain why the term genocide is toxic for the Turkish state, on the grounds that if you recognize the genocide, there may be territorial, financial compensation problems, and that also the Turks would be the first to remind Americans that there's a context to all this. There's an Armenian nationalist movement. Armenians in 1915 are pushing for their own state. It's a separatist movement, and that the real goal of this so-called genocide, according to the Turks, to the Turkish officialdom, was to deport the Armenians from Eastern Anatolia towards the Middle East, towards Syria primarily. So trying to explain why the Turks do not accept it as genocide, I used the term genocide several times, which caught the attention of a couple of other tour guides and who complained to the museum director. And I was arrested in front of my group after like half an hour of touring the museum. And it kind of changed my life because I was ready to take the Foreign Service exam, but I was taken to a police station where the first question asked by the police chief was, "Are you Armenian?" And I said, "No, I'm not Armenian." Then the next question was, "Are you Alevi?" which is a Shiite off-branch of Turkey. And for some reason, many nationalists and Islamist Turks think that some Alevis are of Armenian descent, that they're converted from Armenian Christianity to Alevi Shiite religion or sect because it's easier to become an Alevi Muslim rather than being a Sunni Muslim. So I said, no, I'm not an Alevi either. So they started joking about the fact that I'm not the first traitor that they caught, that there are many Armenian tour guides or people like me who talk about the genocide. I ended up spending 5 hours in detention and explained myself. The next day, when I was basically back home discussing with my parents about what happened, I never forget. My dad said, "Are you crazy? Why are you talking about the Armenian genocide of all places in Ankara, in the Museum of Anatolian Civilizations, where there are other people listening?" And that's the day I decided maybe the diplomacy is not for me. Maybe I should not pursue this not dream, but anyway, this project of taking the foreign service and becoming a Turkish diplomat who will end up becoming a defendant, a lawyer for your own country. You know, when you're a lawyer, sometimes the person you're defending is guilty, but you have to do your job. And I really felt like, okay, I don't want to do this in a country where after 100 years, we cannot even utter the word genocide. We can't talk about it. And you get arrested for even talking about it. So that was a kind of turning point in my career. And I came to the United States in my late 20s to pursue a academic career. And the rest is history. I'm here.
And what's so striking about your story is that you simply use the word genocide to describe the Turkish government's point of view. That was the level of taboo that greeted the subject at the time, even to describe the Turkish government's point of view as to why they couldn't call it that.
I agree. The irony is that if you're among Turks, if you're talking with your left-wing liberal friends about Turkish history, many people would acknowledge that what happened amounts to genocide. But there is something about not telling this to the foreigners, not sharing this with American tourists. And if you do that in front of them, you're basically spilling the beans, the family secrets. And so there is a sense of, how dare you do that? I mean, this is something that you should not do. And that's the kind of reprimand I got during my interrogation, during this 5-hour detention. Someone from the Turkish intelligence community came because they realized I have a master's degree, that I'm connected with the US Embassy. I did not have a green card back then, but the US Embassy probably tried to interfere, saying, this is a tour guide that has been taking tours, friends of the ambassador. So the intelligence guy, who was not much older than me, in his mid-20s, told me, look, he said, your job as a tour guide is to talk about the archaeological beauties and the wonderful things about Turkey. Why do you get into this Armenian genocide issue? Why do you even utter the word genocide in front of them? And he warned me, saying, you're lucky that you're talking about something that happened 100 years ago. If you were to talk about the PKK, the Kurdish terrorist organization, or the Kurds, along the same lines of, Kurdish victimhood, or, the Kurds were subject to a genocide, etc., not even interference from the US Embassy or people that may know you, because I knew that my father and my mother frantically were trying to make phone calls to get me out of the police station. And I realized that there were people trying to basically interfere with the fact that I'm there. Said not even these higher ups trying to get you out of here would be successful. So you're lucky you're speaking about something that is now forgotten, but be aware, you should not talk about certain issues. The Armenian issue is one of them, but the Kurdish question in the late 1990s, tragically as it is today, was a very toxic issue. And these were issues that you don't want to talk about to foreigners, especially as a tour guide. There is this sensitivity, this nationalist, I'm reluctant to say patriotic, but nationalist sensitivity in Turkey about not talking about the family problems, the national problems to foreigners.
And part of the reason that we're talking about it now, and your essay has been republished, is because of news that the Biden administration reportedly wants to acknowledge the Armenian genocide for the first time. What significance, in your view, will this have internationally? How will it play in Turkey? What's the significance of that formal acknowledgement?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, Adam, there is a large Armenian diaspora in the world. I mean, Armenia is a small country of 2.5 million, 3 million people. As far as I know, there's about 7 million Armenians all over the world, and more than probably 1 or 2 million in the United States, maybe larger. So there's an Armenian American community and an Armenian lobby, and it's pretty much a single issue lobby. The recognition of the Armenian genocide for them is a righting an historic wrong, its closure. It's the sense that Turkey should actually come to terms with what happened. And for more nationalist, I would say revanchist elements in the Armenian diaspora, it's also a question of compensation, which for Turkey is the problem, because if the United States president, it may be a non-binding recognition of the Armenian genocide. If Biden tomorrow recognizes the Armenian genocide, just like the US Congress recognizing the genocide last year or the year before when Turkey had a cross-border operation to Syria in anger against Turkey. Remember, the Senate and the House passed the Armenian resolution and they recognized it. It's one way of punishing Turkey. And for Turkey, it could pave the road for a United Nations maybe kind of situation, a kind of international condemnation of Turkey, not only in many European countries as it happened before, but maybe even at the United Nations, a condemnation of Turkey's actions in 1915. And that I think scares the Turkish government because it would not only create this humiliation, but also potentially pave the road for territorial financial compensation from the Republic of Armenia. And the reason why I think the United States government for a very long time was reluctant under previous administrations, previous presidents to call what happened a genocide was because of Turkey's geostrategic importance. I mean, this is a typical case of American ideals or American values clashing with American security interests. I mean, this is why the United States has good relations somewhat with some authoritarian governments, because we basically know that Saudi Arabia has terrible human rights standards, but we still cooperate with them because we need them as against terrorism, for intelligence sharing, etc. And Turkey is not Saudi Arabia, but Turkey lately has become an increasingly problematic partner for the United States. Mainly because of, I think, the Kurdish problem in the country and the fact that the United States partnered up with a Kurdish group in Syria in the fight against ISIS. This has created major problems in Turkish-American relations. Turkey, in the last 10 years, backtracked from a kind of era of democratization under the first decade of the AKP, or the current government in Turkey. So in the last 10 years, I would say Turkey has become even more authoritarian under Erdogan, despite the fact that when he came to power about 18 years ago, the country took steps towards actually normalization with Armenia, opening of debates about the Armenian genocide. Today, there is a much more restrictive and authoritarian climate in Turkey in terms of freedom of speech. And on top of that, Turkey has now angered the U.S. Congress, U.S. Senate by buying Russian missile defense from Moscow in a missile defense system, and which is against, it's not compatible with NATO standards. And Turkey was ejected from the fifth generation F-35 fighter jets. So there is a lot of anger in Turkey against Turkey in the U.S. Body politic, in the U.S. media, in the U.S. Foreign policy establishment. And the geostrategic importance of Turkey has diminished under such circumstances, in my opinion. So it's no coincidence that Biden now, as he makes his mark on American foreign policy with a push for human rights, democracy, and an attempt to emphasize the importance of values and freedom of speech and democracy, is willing to actually take the risk of alienating, angering Turkey with this Armenian genocide recognition.
Thank you very much, Ömer. It was fantastic talking to you. Is there anything that I haven't asked you during our conversation that you'd like to talk about?
I mean, potentially we could say how Turkey would respond to all this. I mean, Turkey
Right.
could definitely try. This will anger many people in Turkey. There could be a case to be made that, it's not the U.S. Business, it's not America's business to judge other people's history, and that the U.S. has its own sins of the past, and that the U.S. should not get involved in such affairs. Or that the real issue in Turkey is the absence of democracy, and that recognizing the Armenian genocide would not help democratization in Turkey. It would even put the remaining Armenian community in danger. I think none of these arguments hold at the moment. I think at this point we're in a situation in Turkey where authoritarianism is deeply entrenched, and Erdogan is willing to use anti-Americanism in any case, independently of who's at the White House or what's happening in American foreign policy. And I'm sure Turkey will react negatively. Turkey will probably recall its ambassador, or temporarily shut down the air base that the United States is using for some of its Middle East operations. But I think this is a small price to pay for the United States to find finally some courage to call a spade a spade. This was, in the eyes of the overwhelming majority of professional historians, a genocide. And it is time for Turkey to come to terms with this. And it is time to close this chapter in Turkish-American relations, where every 24th of April, there is angst and anxiety in Turkey about whether the United States will call it a genocide or not. So hopefully this will be done tomorrow. President Biden will call it a genocide, and Turkey and the United States will recover from that and focus on issues that are probably of more geostrategic significance. But hopefully it will also create in Turkey, after some anger, the realization that this fight is lost, that the whole world recognizes this as an Armenian genocide, and it is time for Turkey to actually come to terms with what happened.
Thank you very much again.
Thank you.